Okay, today we are going to take a look at multi-step equations. So we're going to review combining like terms in the distributive property, and then I'm going to look at solving equations. All of this should be a review from last year, but before we get on to the more complicated stuff, I really need to make sure that you understand all of this material in simpler equations. So first I'm just going to talk about combining like terms, or I should say adding or subtracting like terms. In order to do that, they have to have the same variable in order to add or subtract. So you can't add something that looks like this, okay? Can't be combined. You can't combine something that looks like this because the exponent is different. And we can't combine this, 3x minus 2, because the 2 doesn't have a variable, it's a constant. Okay. So to combine like terms, if I have something like 3x minus 4x, all we're going to do is we're going to take the sign with the term, meaning if we're moving things around, we're going to take what's in front. So that minus negative becomes negative 4x or minus 4x. Technically, when you add these or subtract, you're adding and subtracting the coefficients. So 3 minus 4 is negative 1x. And remember, this is the same as negative x. We have that superhero, the invisible one, that comes down in and drops ones when we need them. Okay, so let's look at a couple more examples. Okay, I have the 3x and the negative 9x, and when I combine them, what I'm combining is the 3 minus the 9. So we're subtracting those. So 3 minus 9 is negative 6x plus 12. And we can't combine them any further. 12 does not have an x. In this next example, I'm going to reorganize this real quickly. Here are my like terms. So I'm going to rewrite this as 24 minus 16. And then I'm going to move the g's together as well, so that it's negative 3g or minus 3g plus 5g. So I've moved them using the commutative property so that I can combine them. So now 24 minus 16 is 8. Negative 3g plus 5g is 2g. And that's my final answer. Okay. We're going to apply this in solving equations in just a minute. But first, we're going to review the distributive property. And remember, with the distributive property, we're multiplying what is outside and right next to the parentheses to everything inside the parentheses. So this 4, we're going to multiply to the 3x. So it's 4 times 3x, and then we're going to multiply here. So minus 4 times 8. So that will give me 12x minus 32. In the second example, I'm going to distribute a negative 3, because if you remember back to when you learned integers, it's plus a negative. Okay, we can rewrite that way. Okay, so it's a negative 3 that's being distributed. So 15 minus 3 times 6x plus negative 3 times 12. So that's going to give me 15 minus 18x when I multiply minus 36. And my like terms are going to be the 15 and the negative 36. So that will give me negative 18x. And when I combine negative 36 and 15, remember, we're going to combine those. We basically are subtracting without the signs and keeping the sign of the larger. So we're subtracting these and keeping the sign of the larger. So 18x minus 21. Again, we're going to apply this to solving equations. I'm not going to talk through this slide. You can just pause it and jot this down if you need to, or take a moment to read that. Here are these steps again. Okay, so the first thing says to get rid of parentheses by distributing, but there are no parentheses, so we can check that off our list. And I want you to think of this as a general checklist. If there's nothing to do, then you don't have to do it. Now it says combine like terms on the same side. When I say the same side, I mean the same side as the equal sign. Okay. So I'm just going to rewrite this so they're next to each other. Okay. And 9f minus 7f is 2f plus 4 equal to 8. Okay. Now that I've combined all my like terms that are on the same side, I'm going to move variables to one side by adding or subtracting. Okay. They are on one side, so I'm going to skip that step. And now I'm going to move numbers to the other side by adding or subtracting. So since I have the variable on this side of the equation, okay, I'm going to move the numbers to the other side. And I do that by doing the opposite. So this is add 4, I'm going to subtract 4. So that I get 2f equals 4. And then I'm going to divide by 2, so f is 2. Now again, this should be a repeat of last year, but I just really want to make sure that you have these simpler equations down before we get to the more difficult ones. Okay. In this equation, on the same side, I have the 2b and the 5b, so I'm going to add, and I'm going to get 35 equals 7b. And now I'm going to undo this multiplication by dividing. So b equals 5. Now I know some people are uncomfortable with variables on the right side, so some of you like to switch. And that's fine. We actually have a property that allows us to do that, and it's called the symmetric property. Okay. Geometry uses symmetric a lot, and we in algebra use it to flip the order of flip things around the equal sign. Now remember when you first learned equations, you learned that you can actually check them mathematically. So if we think that b is 5, we can substitute 5 in for b in our original equation. So 35 equals 2 times 5 plus 5 times 5. And so we think 35 equals 10 plus 25, and it's true. 35 does equals 35, so we've checked, and we know that this is a solution. Sometimes you're going to see, we call it a solution set, even though it's just one thing, your solution's written in set notation. So my solution is 5. I'm okay with either of those. You just need to recognize they're just two different ways to write solutions. So now we're going to actually have parentheses that we need to get rid of. And we're going to get rid of them first by distributing our 6. Okay. So distributing the 6 is going to give me 4 plus 6 times 7 is 42. 6 times m is going to give me 6m, and then that equals 4. I'm going to combine my like terms. So here are my like terms. 4 plus 42 is 46 minus 6m equals 4. I'm going to move the numbers to the other side by subtracting 46. And I'm going to get negative 6m equals negative 42. So remember that this goes with that. That's why it's still negative 6m. Again, it goes back to the subtraction is defined by adding the opposite. I'm going to undo this multiplication by dividing by negative 6, so m is 7. Okay, now you can go ahead and check that if you'd like. But I also want to show you another way of solving this. Now, I said that we should get rid of the parentheses first. But what we actually could do is think about this as one big variable, okay, and subtract 4 from both sides. When you subtract 4 from both sides, you're left with 6 times 7 minus m equals 4 minus 4 is 0. Now remember that distributing is just multiplication. So to undo multiplication, I can divide both sides by 6. And I get 7 minus m equals 0. And then I would add m to both sides, and 7 would equal m. And again, you can, if you wanted to, use that symmetric property to turn that around. So in the beginning of the lesson, we talked about those steps to solving equations. Remember, they're kind of a general outline, okay? And a good way to do things. But sometimes in algebra, you're going to find that there are other ways to do things. All right, let's try this. In this case, our method isn't going to work because I've got a variable. And I'm going to have to combine those like terms in order to get variables on one side and numbers on the other. So I'm going to distribute a negative 4. So I get 19 equals 15 W minus 12W, and this is, think about it as multiplying a negative times a negative. It's going to give me a positive 4. And again, here are my like terms. So I'm going to combine them, and I'm going to get 19 equals 3W plus 4. I'm going to subtract 4. And I'm going to get 15 equals 3W. And if I divide by 3, W equals 15. Okay. All right. The sum of the measures of the angles of a quadrilateral are 360 degrees. So we want to find the value for our variable x. So basically all we have to do is add up our 4 angles, and it should equal 360 degrees. So 50 plus 2x plus 30 plus 2x plus 20 plus x equals 360 degrees. Okay. And then I'm going to reorder this so my variables are together and my numbers are together. So I've got 2x plus 2x plus x plus 50 plus 30 plus 20 equals 360. So now I'm going to combine all my like terms. So these are going to go together, and 2x plus x. Remember there's a 1 in front of there is 5x. And then 50 plus 30 is 80 plus 100 or plus 20. Can't read my own writing. Okay, is 100. And now I've got a basic two-step equation, so I'm going to subtract 100 from both sides, and I'm going to get 5x equals 260. If I divide by 5, I'm going to get 52. Okay, last example for today, we're going to write and solve an equation to answer the following questions. The perimeter of a patio is 64 feet. Remember that perimeter is the distance around, right? So we're going to say this is a rectangular patio because we've got a width and a length. So the width is 12, okay, and the length is x plus 6. So remember, in a rectangular shape, opposite sides are congruent, so that's going to be 12, and this will be x plus 6. And the distance around, you can add up all the sides. So x plus 6 plus 12 plus x plus 6 plus 12 equals 64. And again, I'm going to move things, so I have x plus 6 plus 12 plus 6 plus 12 equals 64. And if I combine my like terms, I'm going to get 2x equals 36, or plus 36 equals 64. And I'm going to subtract 36 from both sides, and that is going to give me 2x equal to 28. I'm going to divide by 2. X is going to equal 14. Now the question is asking, what is the length of the patio? So the length of our patio is x plus 6. So that means I've got to take my 14 and put it back in to this expression. So 14 plus 6 is 20, and it's 20 feet. And if we've got a label, we're going to label it. Right. So homework's going to be a little different tonight. You're going to actually go into Clever, and we're going to talk. We talked about this in class. So we're going to submit our homework online, but you got to show all of your work on another sheet of paper. And I'm going to collect that the next day. Okay, so today we looked at reviewing combining like terms, the distributive property, and we reviewed solving equations. So you guys have a math-tastic day.